And welcome everybody. How you doing, Ken?
Doing well, thanks, Andreas. How are you today?
Fantastical. So welcome everybody. I got Ken
Beautiful.
Corey here with me. We're doing another session of techs on camera having coffee. So today, and we're going to be talking today about Teams calling and security. Ken, you're joining me today from your office. Well, your home office, obviously, but
Yeah, my
and
home office.
we're having a cup of coffee together. What are you drinking?
Oh, three things I like about my coffee. Number one, that it's Cuban. Number two, that it's black. And number three, it's very strong.
Attaboy. I'm drinking a coffee today. That actually one of my staff, she went to Brazil and she brought me back some coffee. And she brought
That's
me back.
good as well.
Oh
Yeah.
Brazil. Yeah, the Brazilians they know their coffee, and she brought me back this unique coffee, and it is probably one of the most rounded coffees I've ever tasted. It's anyway. So
Cool.
tell me a little bit about yourself. So obviously, why did I bring you on today to talk about security and Microsoft Teams calling? So, tell me a little bit about you.
All right. Well, listen, thank you, Andreas, for bringing me on today. Geez, I hate to age myself, but yes, I am a 25-year veteran in the telecommunications world, primarily kind of encompassing the delivery of voice services and internet networking. And that goes right to the point where I actually built my own ISP when I was back in Vancouver still. And I sold that ISP to what was at the time an emerging VoIP company. And in fact, they were one of the very first VoIP companies to deliver voice services from the cloud. And this was back in, around the mid 2000s, I think 2006, somewhere around there. And most recently, I've moved on from my alignment with the telco industry. And I'm currently a specialist in what is newly branded as RTC, or for laymen, real-time communication space. And I'm positioned with Microsoft Advanced Specialized Calling Team, basically connecting what is known as the Teams collaboration application, and we connect that to the old network, PSTN.
PSTN? What's that terminology mean?
That's the original internet, Andreas. The original internet.
Yeah.
The public switch telephone network.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Just for all our followers today, just don't know those acronyms, right? We love our acronyms here.
Yeah.
So, basically, obviously, the reason for the discussion today, and the reason I want to have a cup of coffee with you, was to talk about security. So obviously security is an issue for everybody, and that's kind of where most people are coming at the conversation. That's a major concern for people, for business owners, for managers, for people that are responsible. But what would you say has been the change in the industry in the last 3-4 years that you've seen from obviously you've changed the way you're working with it within the industry. So what have you seen that's been a major adjustment?
Well, if we go back and let's just go back to the early adoption of the internet, and there was many visionaries, myself being one of them, really predicting that the old telephone network, as we called it, would eventually converge together with the newer computer network, which otherwise known as, of course, the internet now. And really, we expected both these networks to eventually become one singular network. However, as you can imagine, the telcos like TELUS and Bell, well, they wanted to slow this process down as much as possible. These guys pretty much still owned their own monopolies, and moving quickly was not in their economic best interest. And that worked for them right up until the early 2019, frankly, when we all know COVID-19 hit, and they kind of lost control because many businesses at that point had to find a way to become more hybrid. People were not coming into the office anymore. So with that happening, Teams actually became one of the fastest, well, it's still known right now today as the world's fastest growing application in history, the history of the world. And that just came out in a Gartner report literally last year. And frankly, Teams calling today is the number one voice delivery mechanism in the market today. And that surpassed RingCentral, was the previous number one owner of that. And that surpassed RingCentral in 2022. That came out of our Gartner report in November. So that's where we're at today. Yeah.
Yeah, it catapulted. And I have to say, from a networking management point of view as well, we didn't want the stupid calling on our networks either, because it was just, there was so much conflict, there was so much finger pointing. It was nobody's responsibility, but it was everybody's responsibility. And so everybody was happy to play that game of, yeah, sure, keep it separate. Like, we don't want VoIP calling on our networks. I had to say it became less and less of a problem, of course, as, everybody started to play nice together. But it literally became everybody hop in the blender in 2020, and you're gonna like it. Right?
Yeah, well,
everybody came less choosy.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, there was a lot of finger pointing going on, that's for sure. When something would go wrong, you've got the internet delivery, you've got the phones, and then you've got, your network, which is a LAN, which is, you got three different, potentially as many as three different talking heads that may turn around and point at each other when one thing seems to go wrong. And that was a problem for sure.
Yeah. So also today, we're going to talk about some of the security features and some of the benefits to a business in going to Teams calling, and how the organization can benefit from that. But to be clear as well, because you also do provide some of those third-party things from the back end. A lot of these features are not like stuff that they can just go get off the Microsoft SKU sheet. There are strategic partners you have to get them from, right? So just clarify a little bit of that.
Yeah, of course. Well, you can get a lot of the things we'll talk about today do come natively from Microsoft, and you would be able to pick that up from a Microsoft calling plan. However, if you're looking at more advanced features and you're going to have to find yourself a direct routing partner. Direct routing is a different way of providing the Microsoft calling, and sometimes they come together on, if you're looking at a real direct routing partner, it's going to come usually on what we call a fully managed layer 2 network. And by putting it over that fully managed layer 2 network, it keeps things completely private, and also has the ability to bypass some of the telco networks and actually bypass the internet in many cases, therefore providing a secure private channel. These private channels are fully controlled by the direct routing service provider, to the point where we don't have to worry about traffic, high traffic times like, rush hour if you're driving and you got to hit a tunnel on the way home. as I think you understand. Traffic can get held up at that tunnel. And when traffic gets held up, what happens in our world is you start seeing latency and jitter and a bunch of other elements that are going to fall into play that you won't find if you find the right direct routing partner. There's also other there's other factors as well that fall into this. If you're on a private network, some partners that I know will, they build their network specifically designed to work, with Microsoft calling, like they were designed for that. What it does is, well, Microsoft to begin with has a different protocol than the old-fashioned SIP. All your other providers, all your other options out there do provide the voice data packets over what they call a SIP protocol. Microsoft has created their own TLS protocol, just a much lighter protocol, much more modern, and by having a private network that is only running TLS, that's going to help keep things smooth and keep things working properly.
Yeah. So I guess just to kind of lay that out for people, right? So when you're dealing with a direct routing partner, they can control, where your data is going to go from their servers to where it's going to have to hit public IPs, right? So it's going to have to hit public internet.
Yeah.
So you can reduce the amount of exposure that you have, but also you do get to kind of select and say, well, don't leave the network. Whenever you're communicating with anybody on the network, make sure it's encrypted. Make sure it's when it's on the network, it doesn't leave.
Precisely.
And it stays encrypted and stays there. Now, I know Microsoft has got their own. They've got their own encryption, which I know a lot of the other kind of telco options are catching up to. What do they call their? I know it's a simple acronym, but it looks
it's E2EE. Yeah, it's called fully encrypted E2EE, and you will receive full encryption as long as you're calling between Microsoft Teams applications primarily.
Right. Yeah. So as long as you're doing Teams to Teams calling, you're going to get E2E, and that's end-to-end encryption. That's what it stands for. So
correct.
Right, so as long as you're doing that,
and that can be to a cell phone as well. So keep in mind that's also a mobile network. So once you're into that Teams application, you got encryption all the way. So it doesn't just necessarily have to be on the public switch telephone network. It's also on the mobile network.
So so there's definitely advantages there. Now, obviously, from a security point of view, being a network guy, we kind of use Active Directory as our kind of, that's our god. That's where we kind of control all of our access, who gets access to what, right? So that's our central repository where every user gets access to whatever, right? So because Teams is integrated into, Office 365 and Office 365 uses Active Directory, I'm assuming obviously we get a little bit of extra security and ability there, right?
Correct. In fact, when you're using some of the more advanced direct routing solutions, user analytics and reporting can actually be passed down into internal departments without having to provide access to all employees to the admin portal itself, which is critical because it allows companies to maintain their integrity within their own networks and only give administrative staff conditional access, and you can do that with multi-factor authentication, and you want to be able to keep that within the people that actually know what they're doing. You don't want to be able to give even most companies won't even give a VP or C-level executive access to the admin portal because of a couple of reasons. Number one, if they leave the company and potentially become a bad actor, they can get into that and they have access to that portal. There's a lot of things that they can get in there and actually cause the company harm.
Well, we see this all the time, and not just in harm, but also in privacy. Like we have, you know, I cannot tell you how many times we see issues like the CEO just tasked the receptionist with, doing the Ring Central deployment, and then she has access to the admin panel, and she's listened to everybody's voicemail, and she can, you know, no bueno from but it's a separate security portal. It's a separate portal. It's a separate access. It's a separate, blah, blah, blah. So obviously, nobody's the wiser until we point it out and we're like, hey, by the way, this is another application. This is where you should be looking. But it's a separate thing to maintain, right? So how does that put? How would we put the owners, and or the even the management team's mind at ease with this, right?
Well, that's exactly what I mean by you got to go with the direct routing partner that's going to provide you with these type of services. These type of analytics are again, if you're to deal with Microsoft Direct, you're going to still be able to have a lot of the data that I'm talking about. That data will be hidden behind the admin portal. So you need to have a company that's going to lift that data out and provide it to, I don't know, let's just give a use case of a sales manager that's managing 5 sales reps. And he needs to know, and some of these sales reps don't necessarily work underneath the roof anymore. Some of these sales reps are now working from home. So these guys are getting a salary. Are they working? Do they start at 8 o'clock every day or 9 o'clock every day? And do they end at 5 o'clock every day?
How many calls are they making? What do their calls sound like?
Yeah.
Are they insulting
What
customers?
Are their calls?
Why is this guy successful? Why is that guy not successful? Yeah, those are things you want to look into, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, particularly if they're not producing. So, I mean, at the end of the day, most companies won't really want to look that deep into, a sales rep or somebody or anybody as far as productivity goes, as long as they're productive. But the time comes when they're not being productive anymore, is a time where now you want to be able to have that ability to have a look and say, hey, this guy, was he even working yesterday? Did he log in yesterday? Some of these type of things. So that can cause.
But also even so, like, and I know this from my team, right? When you find somebody who has a sales pitch or is doing sales in a specific way, or is performing service in a specific way, and they are successful, you want to find that recipe and repeat it, right? So you want to listen to the successful calls too, right? Because what made that a successful call, right? I always say to our team, right, you're either winning or you're learning. So when you're winning, what made you win? Right? What did you do right? Why was that a successful interaction, right? Was it just because he responded quickly? Was it just because you were is that guy only successful because he's stealing leads, or is that guy only successful because he's only calling family members and his luck's going to run out? Are you fairly comparing these people, right? So I think all of it makes sense, and what we would look at as well, like we alluded to earlier, is when you're looking at it from an exposure point of view, we don't want from an IT management point of view, we're looking at saying, I don't want a third-party portal. I now have to secure and manage a whole bunch of different user access, that every time a user enters a company and leaves the company, now I have a whole other management portal that I have to secure with 2FA. I have to manage permissions on once they do a security update, and now permissions mean something different. Or a new employee's added, I have to go and change permissions over there. So management, and sometimes it's not just ease of management, but management, when there's change management involved, that increases your security exposure, right? Because if you don't get to it,
Exactly.
then that can definitely increase your security exposure. So obviously, when we're talking about now, we were just talking about listening to people. So what about compliance on the call recording? What are the advantages of that over a traditional phone system?
Well, some of the more advanced, again, I know I say that a lot, but it, direct routing partners do deliver services that include highly secure call recording features. It what's important is that they keep the data, the IP phone data, within the Azure tenant, which is within the corporate security posture. I don't know if that's the right term or not. You would know better than I. I'm a voice guy, but if you go with a lot of other call recording type companies, again, you've got a third party portal. They'll take your data away after 30 days, or if you want to keep it for 90, they'll charge you extra, and that extra is not a small amount either.
No.
By keeping it within the actual Azure tenant, that's going to keep it highly secure for you. As well, there's some nice reporting that will come out of there, and it does give you the ability, as you said earlier, to be able to monitor and help coach, whether it be sales reps, or it could be even project managers. It could be all types of areas or spectrum within your organization that you're going to want to be able to cover off.
Yeah, and then also on privacy and security on that as well. One of the other things that we do find, because I know we do subscribe to that as well. The important you can exclude and include people as well, and you can include different classes of people.
Exactly.
So if you're calling clients that you do not want or are not allowed to record, you can exclude them. You can exclude manager to manager, CEO to whatever. So you can include or exclude different things. So it's not all or nothing. And then obviously the ability to manage those permissions on who can listen to what becomes even more important, right? So that ease of management,
exactly,
is just
holy
smokes.
What's also important is the ability for the actual agent that's taking the call to be able to pause the call and pause the recording while they're taking financial information from one of their inbound callers. So that's also critical in the actual call recording, and keeping your call recording, as we said in the beginning, compliant.
Yeah, and then I know that there's a whole bunch of other features of, plugging AI in to parse that data and do all that other stuff, which is a whole other conversation. But we won't go into that today.
You can get really deep, and
we can get deep.
You can do the CCAS.
So then also, because we do have a lot of requests for this, and since people don't want to be, and we all know that email is generally unencrypted and coming across in plain text, we have a lot of requests for people being able to text, and the privacy of and the ownership of people's cell phones, and all those issues. Talk to me about the texting abilities with Microsoft Teams.
Well, again, for now at least, this is only a service that only very few partners can provide. Again, a Microsoft Direct Routing partner, and they will allow for highly secure Teams texting for both inbound, outbound. You can even extend that into MMS or multi-message, a way of maybe communicating with their clients or prospects. Or just people within their organization. And then there's another level on beyond that, where we go into like a broadcast, more of a notification type service, which then extends into like almost like an omni-channel or multi-channels. So, and what I mean by that is not just you'll send out a text message, but at the same time, the same message will also be a email message. At the same time, it could also be a voicemail message even. So there's a whole array of abilities around how you communicate via text out beyond your organization and to your teams.
Awesome. It's definitely a game changer for a lot of different industries. So that's huge. So what would you consider the number one benefit, like moving to Teams calling over, you know, the Shaw or the TELUS or the Ring Central or the 8x8 or, all, me and Ned's Pizza and Phones and, all these other VoIP providers that are out there, compared to, what Teams calling is offering nowadays?
Well, I believe I moved from the telcos into the MSP world for a very good reason. And that is, by choosing Microsoft Teams, you are now have the ability to end what I talked about in the beginning, and that was the convergence of two networks. You're going to remove that phone off your desktop. You're not only going to remove the phone off your desktop, you're going to remove that entire network away from your local area network. That's big because that takes away one place of your company's area of productivity that could go wrong, and you're going to remove that completely, and you're going to have inherent security gained by having a calling feature within your company's application stack that's already in use. So you already use Microsoft Teams. Many companies, in fact, another interesting statistic is it's in the high 80s as to the amount of corporations that actually use Microsoft Teams as a phone service. Now, if you're going to remove the phones, it's just like literally, you're going to save a lot of money by moving over because, again, you're adding a couple instances onto it. You're adding a direct routing plan. But at the end of the day, most companies I find, they'll save almost 50% off of what they're paying for their current phones. And they're removing the phone, they're removing the network. Personally, I believe that this is the final step in convergence. You're going to stop using unsecure third-party tools, and you're going to gain a whole host of productivity and a whole way in order to monitor and maintain, and like you said, find that perfect person that's working within your organization for the role and the job that they do. And you can be able to do that by having all of their productivity tools in one single pane of glass.
Yeah, I'm with you on this one. So I think to kind of add to that from our point of view, removing that extra application, whether that's, an extra app that we have to patch, that we have to keep up to date, that we have to train people on, that we have to do whatever. People are already using Teams for video conferencing or right. So it's just like you said, reducing that exposure, and reducing that footprint. Fantastic. And I agree with, from a security point of view, familiarity breeds policy, right? So
yes,
when they already know it, I don't have to train them on it. They're not going to go and start trying to use, WhatsApp for calling, and they're not going to, like, when we give them the options to do it electronically, and they can load the app on their phone and they can do it here. They're not going to start to try to do other things to bypass the network, right? So when they can already do click to call from a web page, and it launches a dialer for them, and everything kind of works, and they don't have this convoluted. Now there's this whole other, a phone list and company directory they have to upkeep and all that other stuff. When it has that familiarity and has that confidence, it's super simple, and people are already using it. They can already just click on people and talk to them. Boom, boom, boom. It is so much simpler for us to manage. One of the cool things that we had a customer talk to us about the other day, and you kind of pitched and educated us on as well, was this cool thing that Microsoft has that I think is a little bit unique. Is they call it dynamic 911, which I think is awesome, which I think is also a little bit of a security feature, but just something I thought we should bring up.
More like a safety feature, I would like to say. Traditionally, there's been E911, and of course, E911 became a problem when some of the VoIP providers started adding applications that would go on a cell phone. Let's just say, I'm going to give you maybe an example. Somebody gets into a car accident and they use their mobile phone application in order to dial 911. 911 would automatically be dispersing its emergency services to the address that's associated to that mobile phone. So therefore, they might not be going to the right place. So D911 would give the ability to allow a customer that might not be in the office that they normally, let's just say the customer or the organization has more than one location, and somebody's at a second location and not at their home location. D911 basically follows the client. So therefore, if they make a phone call or they dial 911 from somebody where they're not, their main address, it will follow them to the actual address, right down to the floor and room necessary for the emergency services to land. So it is cool. It was invented by Microsoft.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like it doesn't seem like something that you would consider that you might use all the time, but like nowadays with the people working remotely, some people don't. Most people don't have home. They don't have home phone numbers. Right. So, if they're using their laptop to call, or if they're using, if for some reason their cell signal's not working, but they need to use their app on their cell phone to make the call. It is a nice safety feature to have. And I thought it was pretty cool. Like, I could see many situations where you need to use it. Right. So I thought it was pretty cool. And I thought it was interesting. So. Anyways, to wrap this up here, also, I just wanted to kind of maybe bring this home, if you could, and explain to everybody, when people are shopping, obviously we're not trying to sell anything here today, and we're just trying to educate people. But when people are out there shopping and they're looking for those third-party integrators and the routing partners, there are so many people that call themselves routing partners and they're not. They're.
I get it. So I get it completely.
Right. So we've run into a lot of them, and how does buyer beware, and how do they decipher between who's truly a routing partner and who's truly not with Microsoft?
Yeah. Well, what's very important is to ensure that your direct routing partner is Microsoft certified. I mean, you got to be using Microsoft certified equipment. There's a lot out there that are out there, not putting the proper investment in to get the proper equipment in order to deliver these services. So that's number one. And if you really want the more Microsoft friendly direct routing partners, and I say friendly just in that, there's a badge Microsoft puts out there, and they just call it Microsoft Advanced Specialization in Microsoft Teams Calling. So you want to look for that badge as well, and you should be good.
Yeah, and that's what's going to give us a lot of these advanced features we talked about.
Exactly.
In the calling, in the security, in being able to set your geofencing, your networking, and your encryption and all that kind of stuff. The point-to-point encryption.
Your analytics, your call recording, being able to do the texting, all of these things are going to come with an advanced partner.
Okay. All right. Well, Ken, thanks, man. I know we've got a whole bunch of other things to talk about, so we'll get this pot of coffee on again soon. And I appreciate your time today, sir.
You got it. Thank you.
Tell me